Okay, I'm just getting things set up here, so grab some popcorn and a beverage or whatever it is that you guys do, and I'll be with you in a few moments. I'm just making sure that there's some stability here with the streaming and all of that kind of stuff simultaneously, and it's a little tricky for some reason. The demands that are required by the computers has increased a lot recently. I'm going to see if I can keep the quality level up, and oh man, this is very frustrating. I just okay, I don't know what to do. Hold on, give me a second. I don't know. It's everything is going good here, but it looks like YouTube is struggling to receive the signal. So I don't know what to say. I don't really know. Give me a second. Please bear with me. Please bear with me. If anyone's there and you can type in the chat, that would help tremendously, so I can know that there's some kind of connection going on. Let me have a look here. I'm going to try and take a couple of shortcuts that might help things along. See what happens here. me get settled here. We gotta go on. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm gonna fill in a list of all the planets and everything. Okay. I'm gonna just stop that here for the moment. All right. Good evening. I guess there's a couple of people here. You know, I didn't schedule any of this, so with this channel, as you know, it's kind of defunct and the notifications rarely go out. So I don't know if anyone's going to get the notifications or even show up or whatever. But I was informed that Nikki already donated for an eclipse reading. So we have that. And that's kind of the subject of this show here tonight. I felt it's the middle of the week and I've missed 2 shows in a row. I couldn't do anything on Sunday, and I couldn't really do anything on the Sunday before, but I thought maybe I can catch up a little bit now. Of course, I'm not going to worry about whatever else happened back then. I'm just going to focus on the now, okay? The only thing that counts is now. And, you know, if you're here, we've made it. We've made it to here. But the question is, well, where are we going from here? Because we're dealing with a very important eclipse as far as I'm concerned. It's a very important eclipse. And I think I'm going to have to do the thing where I do my little elevator analogy about eclipses so that people have a really, I guess, simple and hopefully understandable perception of eclipses. Let me see if I can do this. Alright, so I've got this board here ready for the planets. Okay, I'm going to go over here. I'm actually starting to run out of paper. I need to get a new pile of paper. Anyway, we'll sort that out another day. But for the time being, let me say hello. Okay. Let's see if this works. Ah, hello, good evening. Let me get my hat. There's too much shiny stuff going on. It's partly vanity, but it's also just a distraction. I like a good color balance of lighting. Remember, I worked for 20 years in Hollywood, and I was on a lot of set stages with cameras and cinematographers and actors and directors and producers, and they take this kind of stuff very, very seriously. There's a big difference in terms of the visual and emotional impact and impression between this and this. Okay? Do you see? It's really simple stuff. But unless you are open and acknowledge it and for what it is, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm just trying to convey the message, like in terms of how this would work in Hollywood. You know, lighting department, camera and lighting department are a very, very, very important part of when you're making movies and TV shows and episodics and commercials and everything. The production teams spend huge amounts of time and energy setting up all the lighting and the microphones and the sound to get everything sort of the way it needs to be. Right now, what I'm hoping is that I'm just a conveyor, an instrument of the healing power of love, information and knowledge. But what's really happening is that you're absorbing the deeper inner messages of what's going on. So right now it is Wednesday, 17th of November. It's evening here in Las Vegas. It's cooling down, thank God. And as usual, every year there's at least 4 eclipses. Last year I think it was 6 or something insane. This year I think we're to 5, and then it's stabilizing. Anyway, again, I'm not a professional astronomer, okay? I'm very lucky recently that I was able to spot Venus and Jupiter and Saturn right outside the backyard here, just looking up into the sky. Even with the city lights, I could see Jupiter and Saturn. That was a really big deal for me. I've also been very lucky in life to have witnessed solar eclipses face on and lunar eclipses face on. They happen on average about 4 times a year. You know, a couple of solar, a couple of lunar. And lunar eclipse is what we have coming up very, very soon. And what happens is it's where the Earth shadow blocks the light of the sun that would normally come to the moon, that we would see reflected off the moon back to Earth as our experience of looking at the moon. It just so happens that the way the planets are organized and the way the orbits line up, there are these very, very particular moments in time like this. If you can understand this chart, you're a freaking genius. I can barely understand it, but at least it helps, okay? So have a look over here. Okay, so the Earth, first of all, we got to establish the Earth orbit. Okay, can you see this line here? Okay, I'll do it this way. All right, can you see this line here? All right, that's the orbit of the Earth around the Sun. Got it? And the Sun is way, basically way over there, you know, a couple 100 million miles or whatever it is. The Earth is just whizzing around like it does. But it's a very weird thing. There's really not much else to compare in our solar system. And it actually seems to be pretty rare with solar systems in general, where you have a planet like this. This is Earth, and it's doing an orbit of a star. Okay, that's what we know. We already know about this. This is our planet Earth, and it goes around the Sun 365.25 days, what we call days, regular as clockwork. It's been doing that for about 4.5 billion years. And it's going to keep going for about another 4 billion years. Humanity will be long gone by then, so don't worry, nothing to stress about, okay? But we will be totally defunct by then. In the meantime, we're still here, and we're trying to figure out, like, who are we? What are we doing here? Why are we here? What does this all mean? In some ways, it's completely and utterly meaningless. It's just natural, raw events of nature and the universe. It's just that with planet Earth, it's a very bizarre and rare phenomenon, because up to date, even though there's hundreds, if not thousands, of scientists on planet Earth trying to look outside at the solar system and figure out if there's anything like us anywhere, because we have imaginations. And it feels very weird to consider the idea that there's this little blob called planet Earth around, orbiting around our sun, called the Sun, which is just a tiny fragment of our solar system, which we call the Milky Way. Our solar system, which is a tiny fragment of the galaxy, the galaxy that we call the Milky Way. And our galaxy is just one of billions of galaxies out there. So for humanity, it's a really bizarre stretch to consider the idea, like, is it just us? Like, is there anyone else out there? Hello? Hello? Any UFO fans? Any alien fans? Of course. Humans have fabulous imaginations, and so we can concoct all these alternative worlds. But in terms of science, in terms of astronomy, I'm sorry, there's nothing. There's nothing out there that's even, sadly, even remotely like planet Earth. Yes, there are places that have water. Yes, there are places that have, tilted axes. Yes, there are planets that rotate around a star. But to have all the combination to the point where we have things like weather, water, all these like coincidental things that line up to create this environment that triggers what we call life, organic life. Organic life started with an incredibly complex biochemical organism, that's what it is, called DNA. The simplest form of life that we know about on Earth is a virus. It's literally just a wiggly, curly, cute, squirrely thing made up of DNA. Mostly it's DNA. I forgot the word for DNA. I learned all this stuff when I was a kid. This was in the very early days of DNA. Now DNA is everywhere, okay? But anyway, not a lot has happened since when I was a kid. DNA is a biochemical structure. It's incredibly complex. And it formed kind of randomly out there in the heavens. Excuse me, I just got to check something technical stuff going on here. For some reason the chat is not working. If anyone's trying to type in the chat, I can't see it. Okay? So I'm sorry everybody, for whatever reason. If you're trying to chat, I can't see anything coming in here. I don't know why. I don't have the technical know-how to figure out how... Wait a minute. Hold on. There's a button. Let me try this. Nope. That doesn't do anything. So I have no idea what's going on. I do the best I can with this channel. I'm running like 5 simultaneous broadcast softwares to get this to work at all. Most people are, I don't know how they do it. They have a way to do it with like 1 or 2 systems. I can't do it that way. Anyway, I guess the point I was trying to get to is that, like, here we are, little planet Earth. Right now, as far as I can tell, remember, when I was a little kid, I was one of the original founding members of the Astrophysics Club in my school when I was a little tiny teenager. My school was a barbaric torture chamber full of perverts and extremists and narcissists and megalomaniacs. And for some reason, I went there according to my parents' wishes, and apparently I was smart enough to get in there. But when I got there, I realized I was kind of a dunce or an idiot compared to some of the other people who were there, you know, on scholarships. And some of the schoolmates that I had were kids. You know, kids. We're talking about anything from 13 to 18. These kids are born with brains. Some of them, there was this elite group of kids, about 75, maybe 80 or 90 of these kids. They were born with brains where they're smarter than their teachers. They're smarter than the, what do they call them? Those tests where you measure intelligence way back in the day. And these kids are like biological, mental, psychic freaks. And they know more about math, trigonometry, calculus, advanced math, advanced physics than their teachers. And they're just little teenagers. And I grew up in this environment. And so some of it rubbed off on me. And the things that I liked was astronomy. And so basically that meant that it was just a bunch of us that would hang out and talk about stars and planets and everything magical out there in the universe. But I'm not actually very, you know, I'm not as scientific or as I thought it was. So I kind of faded. But like the vibe still lingers. I'm still absolutely astounded to this day that there is this thing that we call planet Earth, and it zooms around what we call the sun, and the sun is part of this thing that we call our solar system, which is part of this thing that we call our galaxy, which is part of the universe. You see where I'm going? It's just like infinity. And here we are, 7.5 billion people, things that we call human beings that live on this blob, trying to figure out what the hell is going on here. There's a few people like us here at this channel where we kind of take it as it is. We regard it as kind of like this amazing, beautiful spiritual journey. And we are conscious and aware of the healing power of love. And we deliberately activate and invite the healing power of love to enter our lives from up above. And from there, we can oscillate and transmit and receive energy as instruments of the healing power of love by choice. And that's just a lifestyle choice, you know. I do my best to adhere to these choices. Not everybody does. There's a part of me which is obsessed with physical material reality, like, how can I have as much money as possible? How can I get my cool new car? How can I get all my most amazing computers? How can I get another computer to do this stuff to a proper standard? Things like that. Physical material reality. And you take it down to the really core zone where all sense of compassion, empathy, and humanity has been completely incinerated, and you get left with these human beings that I consider empty, hollow. They're action-reaction zombies. And their primary interest is at the very core fundamental, like Pluto level. It's just power. Power, money, control, lust. I need more power. I need more money. I need more control. We're going to the depths, the very, very depths of humanity on the shadow side. And those people tend to be at the very, very, very highest levels of human society. Why? How? I don't know, but that seems to be my observation. And the rest of us have to live at the mercy of these people who I would call the least evolved. They might be the most evolved in terms of like mental abilities, power, control, money, connections, and the ability to completely ignore the energy of compassion or empathy or the healing power of love and focus solely and purely on power, control, and money. Because these are the tangible ways that human beings feel raw satisfaction and validation in their lives. Like when you feel like you are in control and you have power and you can say this and you can say that and people do this and people do that because you just radiate all this power, it's an incredibly satisfying experience. It's like freaking morphine. It's like fentanyl. It makes you feel incredible. And then when you realize, wow, when I have all that power, I also get a lot of control. That's amazing. And that feeds the addiction. It's so delicious. It's so seductive that you just want more and more and more and more. And it goes to the point where the more you take, the more you dissolve your soul. And the more you adhere to the lowest frequencies, the lowest forms of radiation of that kind of energy. And that kind of energy condenses into what we call money. Money is kind of like this universal measure of power and wealth and control. Like, it's really simple, you know. If you have a lot of money, then you effectively have a lot of control and a lot of power. So the question is, what are you going to do with all that money? Because that means big question marks. How are you going to express your power? How are you going to express your control? The way I see it personally, the people who have all that stuff at the very top of the pyramid of society, they have all the money and the power and the control, and it's like an unending, ever expanding addiction to more power, more money, and more control. And so how do you get that? You get that by doing whatever you did before to get all that control and all that power and all that money, and you just take it to the next level. So guess what? That's what they're doing. It's really simple. And it's really, really simple when you get down to the core energy dynamics of what's actually happening. I don't want to name names. I actually demonetized this show tonight, so I'm not going to make any money from any kind of advertiser or anything. There's nothing. So if anybody wants to help out, please contribute. I'll show you. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Anyway, the kind of thing that I'm talking about is very much to do with Pluto energy, which is the energy, it's the farthest planet from the sun that we take account of in Western astrology. And it deals with the deepest, most profound raw nature of humanity. It's the stuff over which we have almost zero control or awareness or responsibility or capability. That's the Pluto. It's the energy of the mob. In other words, if you condense mob energy into a single individual, it would be like this. I become a criminal. In other words, you know what? You pissed me off. I'm sorry, I don't like you, man. You just pissed me off. Or you just pissed me off. I just didn't like the way you looked at me. You know. Oh, you know what? Now I'm thinking about it, because I have so much control and power, and I don't really give a shit what happens to you. I'm going to rape and abuse and pulverize and extract anything I want out of you for my personal enjoyment and my personal pleasure. Thank you. It's a lot of fun. You should try it sometime. Yeah. So it's a very, very extreme form of energy. When the Pluto energy is, let's say, owned and managed and directed in a healthy way, it's very powerful, like the healing power of love, this kind of energy. When it's operating unconsciously, it's the absence of love, the absence of the healing power of love. And when we remove consciously and deliberately the healing power of love, or the energy of love and compassion, from our being, we become what I consider just like zombies. We look like humans, we have lots of power and control and money, which is a very sought after, desirable thing for a lot of people. But there's like an equation that goes with it. If you really want the extremes of power and money and control, you have to make deliberate choices in the heart of your soul to invalidate and eliminate and switch off the energy of love, the energy of the healing power of love. And people do that. They do that out of a desire for lust and power, a desire and lust for more power, money, and control. Because it's like they made an equation. It's just like an equation. I would rather have all the power and the money and the control that I can get in this lifetime, even if it means I have to do really despicable things in my actions and decisions that affect people in other ways. So you could talk about a serial killer. You could also talk about a massive sort of leader type character that can have evil outcomes on millions of people. Doesn't matter whether you're dealing one-on-one or with millions. It's the same decision. So we have a lot of people, a handful of people, I'm guessing around 75,000 people in total, on planet Earth right now, who have deliberately, consciously chosen to switch off the healing power of love, to pull out the fuse and deliberately deactivate that part of their nature, in order that they can operate in a world where they have this thing that they want more than love. They want power, money, and control. They want it more than love because it feels so amazing and it is so addictive. Once you get a taste of it, you have to decide, like, do I really want to go on this way? It's almost like the energy of bloodlust. I don't know how else to describe it except by going into private videos with people. I feel very strange right now because there's absolutely nothing coming up on the chat, and I have no idea why it's not working. It might have been one of the settings I did on the show when I set it up, but I don't understand it. Anyway, back to the eclipse. This is just another eclipse in the never-ending world of eclipses. Actually, when our solar system starts to devolve and things fall apart, we're not going to have eclipses anymore. And so planet Earth will be sucked up by the big, the nebula of the sun. And other planets will be sucked up, and the whole of our solar system will implode. Just like all the other solar systems implode over time. But we're talking about another 3 or 4 billion years. So for now, we're still in peak humanity. So here we are at peak humanity. We've now got 7.5 billion people living here, operating on this planet. And we breathe and consume. We pee and poop, and we breathe and consume foods and fluids and energy and all that kind of stuff. And humanity is starting to realize on a global scale that, oh my God, we're living in a world that has finite resources. Forget whatever they said in the good book about like go forth and multiply. We've already done that. We've done the go forth and multiply, and we've taken it to extremes where we've taken it so far that everyone's looking at each other like, wait a minute, you're taking up my space. You're taking up my food. You're taking up my water. You're taking up my freedom, my rights to be me. I feel like I live in a compromise, like a lot of people feel, where I'm very much preferring to operate by making difficult choices to say no to power, money, and control in favor of having this other unquantifiable thing in my life called the healing power of love. That's a choice. And the more I keep going in the direction, the more I want to keep going in that direction. But it's very, very counterintuitive for a lot of human beings because it feels that you're going farther and farther and farther away from the things that are really important, like money, power, and control. Anyway, back to this eclipse. Here's the orbit of the sun, of the earth, okay? It goes around the sun, 365 and a quarter, what we call days. So this thing, planet Earth, it whizzes around exactly 365 and a quarter times for every time that it goes around the sun, okay? And the Earth has its own little thing over here called the moon. And this moon rotates around our Earth. Whee! And it just so happens because of the planes of orbit. Let me show you this little diagram if I can. Hold on. Okay, I have to go back to the stage. Hold on, give me a second. This is a very crude interpretation of our solar system, okay? There's the sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Moon, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. You see, this is on a flat piece of paper. And it's like I'm up way out in outer space looking at our solar system from outer space way up here, and I see this beautiful thing. Out here, Pluto is a little bit weird because its real orbit is more of an oval, a weird kind of oval because it's very far out in the gravitational field and it has a weird orbit. But in general, this is what it looks like. Now, this is not to scale because Mercury and Venus are very close to the sun, so is Earth. But when you get out here, we're talking hundreds of millions of miles, okay? But anyway, here's my point. If you look at our solar system from here, it looks like this. If you look at it from the side, it's like this, okay? Pretty much, basically, all the planets in our solar system operate on a plane. A very, very flat plane, except for Pluto, because Pluto is slightly at an angle, okay? So Pluto kind of operates way off in the fringes. It's a bit of a wobbly thing, okay? It's like, it's off kilter. And so it has a very, very difficult energy field for human beings to integrate. But we do, or we try, some of us try. Anyway, going back into more detail, here we are at planet Earth, and there's the moon. So what happens is the Earth goes around here, the Earth goes around here in what we call 1 year. In other words, it takes a whole year to go back to here. Now, in the meantime, our planet Earth is actually rotating. Not a lot of planets rotate. That's kind of weird too. But the Earth rotates, and it's also on a skewed axis. So every time the Earth goes from here to here, we call that a year. But in the meantime, the Earth is doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 365. The Earth is rotating while it's rotating. Now add on top of that, the moon is rotating around the Earth. Okay? Okay, that's this circle here. This is the moon rotating around the Earth. So it's like this whole thing goes all the way around here. And this thing rotates around the Earth in such a way that we have what we call our lunar cycles. And in lunar terms, we have exactly 13 lunar cycles. The moon revolves around the Earth exactly 13 times for every time that we go around the sun 1 time. And those are just called the lunar patterns. Okay? Now, some people live their life according to lunar calendars. The lunar calendar is, in a way, much simpler and more pure than the solar calendar. With the lunar calendar, it's exactly every 28 and something days, and it goes around and around and around and around. I personally choose to follow the lunar cycles much more than I follow the solar cycles, because the lunar cycles pertain very closely with our experience and feelings here on planet Earth. The solar cycles are a lot more, let's say, convenient for when you're looking at things on a bigger scale, like power, money, and control, the seasons and all of that. The lunar cycle is very much more geared towards the personal, internal, emotional experience of life, which is where I seem to be more highly attuned. Anyway, let's go back. Let's go back over here. See if I can do this. Hold on, I got to figure out how to do this. Okay, here we go. All right, so over here, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a blue kind of swirl, and that is the lunar orbit. And interestingly enough, the orbit of the moon is sort of along the same, hold on, very similar plane to this. Remember, I showed you this and then I showed you this. So it just so happens that the orbit of the moon is on a pretty similar orbit in terms of the plane to Earth relative to the sun. However, again, like Pluto, there is a slight tilt. Just a slight tilt. Okay? Gosh, I'm not a professional astronomer. Please don't show this to your local astronomy teacher. Anyway, what happens is, because the orbit of the moon is on a slightly skewed angle to the orbit of the Earth relative to the sun, we get these quirky events called eclipses, and they just happen to be highly predictable because the people who know how to do all this stuff can create very accurate mathematics to show us and tell us exactly when the eclipses are going to happen, and they're going to start and they're going to finish. And I have what's called an ephemeris, which is a book that outlines all of these things, and you can chart this for hundreds of years ahead of now if you want to. But anyway, here we are today. We're heading into a lunar eclipse for the Scorpio-Taurus axis. The lunar eclipse means that the moon, which is very, very big and bright right now, is suddenly going to start to go into darkness. Why? Because the earth is getting in the way. The sun is over here. Day or night, it kind of doesn't matter. But at nighttime is when you see it. Because that's when you see the moon most clearly, is at nighttime. So what happens is it's just literally a freak of geometry and math where the earth blocks the light of the solar. The sunlight starts here, heads towards and out across our solar system. It hits Earth, and it just so happens that the moon is in its orbit way over here. And again, another freak of nature. By the time the shadow of the Earth hits the moon, it's almost an exact match. It's freakish. I mean, I don't know how to describe it in terms of math, but in terms of math and statistics, it's extremely freakish that we have this arrangement where the shadow of the Earth, that's this here, this is the shadow of the Earth. When it shrinks down, it gets to the moon, it's almost an exact match. So as the shadow moves across, it's like the moon disappears. It's no wonder primitive humanity, well, they're not primitive, but earlier humanity freaked out whenever we had the eclipses. Because they are extremely weird, bizarre astrological events that I don't know if they happen anywhere else in the universe or our solar system or with Saturn. Saturn has lots of moons and other planets have lots of moons, but do they have what we have? I don't know. I've never seen any reports anywhere. Anyway, so that's what we're dealing with right now. We have a lunar eclipse coming up. Let me go back to the charts here. Like some of you, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I have this fetish about eclipses. And I describe them in terms of the experience of an elevator. Not everybody's dealt with this, but I use an analogy of industrial commercial elevators that are used in factories and warehouses and so on. Cheers, everybody, by the way. We live on this thing called planet Earth. We have this experience that we call time because we measure everything. And so in terms of time, we have this measured experience. Okay, time goes this way. All right? Time. And let's say evolution, spiritual evolution. Let's put this axis here. Okay, it's just a graph. So, in my experience and observation of eclipses, what happens is this. We're living a life, tickety tick 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 tick, and then we hit an eclipse. It's less like, uh-oh. It's a very compact moment in time, typically a few hours. There's the build up to the eclipse and there's the after effect of the eclipse. But in my experience, what happens with eclipses is that things are eclipsed. Eclipse means to basically obscure and blot out and remove something from perception. Okay, here's my hand. My hand is now going to be eclipsed by another hand. Watch this. You see that? My other hand is now eclipsed. And there's my hand again. Woohoo! All right? So it's the same thing with the lunar eclipse. But what tends to happen spiritually inside of us, somewhere in your chart, in your life, in your world, you get this weird experience. The only way I can describe it most simply is with an elevator. You're living your life at this frequency of spiritual evolution, and then we come to this compressed vortex where it's like an elevator. This is the elevator shaft, okay? You enter here through a doorway. The eclipse happens, and it's like we get moved up. And with a two-door elevator, okay, there's a door on this side, and there's a door on this side. However, this one is opening while this one is closed. And then when we get up to the next level of energy after the eclipse, we still have the door here. And we still have a door here. But in this situation, it is now this door that is closed. And this door is now opening. And so it's like, whether you like it or know it or not, you are being forced. Okay, let's call this life as you know it. This is your life as you know it. This is the energy field of the eclipse. This thing, life as you know it, is now over, and you're going to get a new version of it that's, however comfortable around, it's operating at a higher frequency of evolution, spiritual evolution, okay? So you enter here, and you are exiting here. See what I'm getting at? Does that make any sense to people? You're entering here, you exit here. So it's a little bit unnerving, because when we start coming out the other side here over the next few weeks, you start to realize, oh my God, there's no going back. This part of your life, life as you've known it, is essentially over. This part is now just allocated and relegated to the world of history. It's just like a journal or like an antique. You can look at it, you can talk about it, you can reminisce, you can constantly think about the past, but it's effectively over. It's obsolete, it's redundant. Here is the new life going forward. For a lot of people, it can be extremely uncomfortable, because a lot of people don't want to evolve. A lot of people want to have a lot of control and power and money so that they can make it feel as though they have absolute control and power over their lives, as though they can live forever, like these megalomaniac narcissists who just want to perpetuate their own megalomania and narcissism. Those are the people at the very top, okay? It's a very, very sick, sick world up there. But there's the rest of humanity, which are kind of operating to certain degrees of consciousness or not. But we're going forward. Anyone who's watching this channel right now, I'm hoping that at some level you understand this. I don't know the degree of your understanding, but I'm hoping you understand it. And then we just go from here to here. Because I'm an amateur astrologer, I already knew this was coming, months and months ago. And so I was prepared. I'm already into this, out of this, and I'm already looking at the other side. I'm already standing in the elevator waiting for this door to open, because the door is going to open in the next day or so. And I'm already looking forward to life ahead. What does that look like? Well, guess what? We're talking about the great unknown. It's a massive question mark. So what is this? See, here's another thing. People are terrified of the unknown. They are so terrified of the unknown, they would often rather just go back to whatever they know, no matter how bad it is. Fear of the unknown is incredibly powerful. People who like where they are right now and want to obtain and maintain more power, money, and control and stay there are actually so terrified of the unknown because they know deep down they can't handle it or control it, that they try to maintain this. This is a pathway to devolution, okay? If certain human beings decide that, no, this does not apply to me, I am so powerful and I have so much control and so much money that I can override and obliterate and ignore the laws of nature. Ha ha ha. Right. Well, guess what? What you're actually doing is digging your own grave. Those people are essentially turning things upside down on themselves. So we're talking about spiritual evolution, which goes this way, into spiritual devolution, which goes this way. In other words, they are creating and building more and more evil. They do that by removing more and more and more of the healing power of love from their life. The healing power of love basically is asking that we completely and utterly surrender to the healing power of love and the journey of spiritual evolution, the way I'm trying to describe it on here. For some people, it's a very terrifying experience to realize, like, I'm entering a whole new life and a whole new world where I don't really know what's going on. I thought I knew everything and everything already, but you're entering into whole new levels where you don't really know. And for some people, that is so terrifying that they would rather devolve rather than evolve. I am choosing this path, even though in many ways I'm terrified, because I don't really know what's going to happen. And for a person, for a human being like anyone else, I would like to have as much power, money, and control as I can in life. But I want to live a life that is full of love and experience. So I choose this path. I choose this path instead of this path. You can do that. Anyway, so let's go to the next level. Let's go back to my original chart here. Thanks for visiting, everybody, by the way, whoever you are. I have no idea what's going on or who's watching because I can't see anything. For some reason, the chat's not working, and I don't know how, I haven't got a clue what's happening. I'm going to give a reading for Nikki in a minute. And by the way, if anyone else is watching, I still owe a reading. Like, let's say this was a normal Sunday night show. I still owe a reading, a little mini live reading to Robin's Realms Readings, and to Gregory Ross, and to Melanie McCall. But I'm not going to do any of that tonight. All right? This is a spontaneous video in honor and respect of the eclipse. So here we are. Let's get back to the moment. Let's get to here and now, because this is where all the power lies. Forget about the past. Forget about the future. What's happening right now? What's happening right now is this. In terms of astrology, you know, I take this to heart. I take this really seriously, even though I'm an amateur and I don't know enough math or physics to prove any of it, but I know from experience and evidence and for doing thousands of readings with people that there is something to the astrology, okay? There is this magic. It's literally like freaking magic. So today, right now, we're heading into this eclipse, which is on the Scorpio-Taurus axis. The Sun and Mercury and Mars are all very tight up here in Scorpio. And it is opposed by the Moon and Uranus over here in Taurus. The exact eclipse is very, very late on the 18th. Basically, it's like the 19th, where the sun will be exactly opposite the Moon. But there are so many planets involved in this eclipse that you can't just allocate the Sun and the Moon. We're talking about Sun, Mercury, and Mars conjoined, and Uranus and Moon conjoined. So it's a very, let's say, a powerful eclipse. And all eclipses all lunar eclipses relate to the energy field of relationships. It's like self and other, or self and other. In other words, how do you relate to the world, and how does the world relate to you? For most people, that's measured in relationships. How do you, let's say that's you, how do you relate to the other people in your world? Well, you would notice that through experience. Good experience, bad experience. And how do the other people relate to you? Let's turn these into the other people. Let's pretend these are the other people. How do they relate to you? Consciously or unconsciously. So, with the Scorpio-Taurus axis, it's going to be very, very much to do with, I would say, money and value, and how you measure money and value, and how that looks in your world. How valuable are you to someone else, and how valuable is someone else to you? And are you appreciative, or are you exploitive? It's just power, it's just energy. I call it energy management. What are you going to do with all this? Are you even remotely aware of this energy dynamic at all? At the same time, it's this really extreme axis here is in a very hard square, broad square, loose square with the Aquarius energy. We've got Saturn in Aquarius and Jupiter in Aquarius up here, which is all about the raw energy of humanity. How tuned in are you with humanity? How tuned in are the other people in your life, in your world, with humanity? And how's that working out as an equation? Like, are you all in sync with each other? Or are you starting to notice that there are people in your life that are really out of sync with you? Or are you starting to notice that you are really out of sync with other people in your life, in your world? Because the really, really important thing is to understand, the value that you bring to this world, this life, it's measurable, okay? And the value that other people bring to you in this life is measurable. And it's a question of not just how's that going to work for me, how can I line my pockets? How can I make that best for me? It's what's best for humanity. What's best for humanity is when we all look at each other and respect each other like, wow, I'm just as valuable as you, and you're just as valuable as me. But that's a really, really hard equation to swallow. The nearest analogy that I can think of is like the March of the Penguins movie, or some of those beautiful nature movies where you see penguins. Okay, I might sound like I'm going mildly insane here, but think about it. I'm not a penguin, so I don't really know, but I did watch the movie March of the Penguins, and I was watching another a discovery thing, nature thing with Love Triber. As some of you know, that I'm living over here in the house of Love Triber, and I've come to enjoy some of these beautiful animal shows because they're full of love. Okay. And so when I saw this nature thing about penguins, it reminded me of the movie March of the Penguins. So in the penguin communities, what you realize is that there are, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of these penguins. And they're all penguins, just like human beings are human beings. There's adult penguins and baby penguins. And their biggest concern is survival of the next generation. And they happen to live in a very extreme climate and condition where if you wanted to, you could live your life as a complete narcissist megalomaniac where I don't care about anyone else in the community. I'm just going to do what I think is cool for me and my babies and my family. I want to become Lord and Master of the penguins. I want to have more babies and more food than everybody else so I can be the king monster, on the top of the pyramid of power, control, and money. in the world of penguins. But what actually happens in the world of penguins is that there is no defined pyramid of power and control. In their world, it's a community. They can't live without each other. They literally cannot live without each other. The only way they can live is by sharing in a very egalitarian, aquarian, penguinarian dynamic where we're all in this together. So what they do is they share. They do these amazing rotation things where they, when it's really, really rough in wintertime, they coalesce into these massive clusters. Tens, hundreds of thousands of penguins all squashed together to keep their body mass close together, to retain heat, and to deflect as much cold and snow and ice and wind as possible. And they do that by squashing very, very tight together to the point where you really can't distinguish one penguin from another. It's just a huge pile of penguins. And in order to survive, they do these rotation things where the penguins deep on the inside of the cluster start to gently migrate to the outside, where they willingly sacrifice all the wealth and warmth and the abundance that they have from being in the middle and the center in order to put themselves on the perimeter of the population, where you have the brutal experience of being on the outer wall that has to take the brunt of nature. And then the penguins who were on the outside of the wall start to mingle and wobble and wiggle their way closer and closer towards the center. And it's this amazing, organic, beautiful dance of nature, which is all about pure survival. So, the penguins at the core deliberately sacrifice themselves, not to death, but to the point where they are willing to endure extreme pain and cold and suffering for the benefit of the community, not for themselves. Get it? And they do that. They migrate to the exterior, and the penguins at the outside migrate towards the interior. And it's like an ebb and a flow, an ebb and a flow, and an ebb and a flow. And what happens is that the whole community survives to live another year. And for part of that period, they have to incubate their little babies. And they still have to eat and sleep and pee and poop. And so they do all that in this extremely compressed, highly deadly environment. But they do it. And then when spring and summertime comes, they expand and they grow. And they all go berserk. They all feed and go berserk to eat as much krill and little fishes as they can and get as huge and big and fat as possible in order to survive another winter and make more babies. And it's just a cycle. It repeats over and over and over again for hundreds of thousands of years. And it works. And so penguin society is very, very different from humans. Human society is very much about predator and prey. There are people at the top of human society who prey on other humans. That's how they live. They do it through the financial markets, the political systems, and so on and so on. In order to extract value for themselves by farming the community, farming humanity. It's a very, very different ecosystem. Human beings are about as far apart from penguins as you can possibly manage in terms of behavior. Penguins have a very Aquarian type of society. Human beings have something very different. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning that is because on this eclipse, we're talking about the Taurus-Scorpio axis, which is very much about value and values. The Taurus energy is very much about the value that you have, the talents and the gifts and the resources that you have personally. And the Scorpio energy is about other people's talents. Like, well, scorpionic energy out there would be, we're talking about survival by and with and through shared resources. In other words, talk about the Scorpio energy, about how Scorpio energy survives by, let's say, mingling with other people's money. The way that looks in society is things like pension plans, insurance plans, IRAs, 401ks, retirement packages, long-term investment strategies, where you, as a living organism with all your time and energy and resources, create relationships with other entities that take all your energy and do something useful with it so that it's valuable for you later in life. It's like savings plans and so on. But what's happening in society now is that the equation is very distorted, because the people who promise to look after you, take care of you, okay, look at it this way. Here's a saying that I like. Vote for me and I will save you. Another way to do it is like, invest all your money with me. Your IRAs, your 401ks, your savings plans, everything. Put it over there with me and I will look after you. You will get more when you're older and retire than you had now, and you'll have a wonderful life. Just give me all your money now. It works really well when it's done properly and honestly and authentically. But it becomes pure evil when it's sold to you as a way for you to be comfortable and safe and happy when you can't take care of yourself anymore. And all the people with whom you trusted your money suddenly turn on you, and you realize, wow, holy shit, they're taking it all for themselves. Okay, that's vampirism. That is theft. That is lies, deception, betrayal, absence of love, which I call evil, or which other people call evil. It's much easier to call it evil, but in fact it's really just the absence of love. So that's what I'm sensing here. Okay, let me go back. What we're looking at here for the whole of humanity is this whole concept that's in question right now. There are people in a very, very elite pyramidal structure who have made this decision from their perspective that they know how to save the world and save humanity. So they are presenting this beautiful story to humanity that we are here to save you. It's perfect for humanity. You know, we're going to reduce carbon. We're going to stop people from eating meat. We're going to live off bugs and processed food, and we're going to do everything according to a massive globalized one world, one control, one program, new world order, where we, the elites, know more than you do. So we're going to tell you what to do and how to do it. All you have to do is surrender. All you have to do is completely and utterly give up your power, your sovereignty, your identity, your integrity, so that we can take care of all that stuff for you. And then you're going to be just fine. So anyone who believes in that is just like, sucker! Because what's happening is they're telling you this beautiful storyline in order to rape you, in order to drain you, in order to bleed you, in order to milk you, in order to harvest your energy for themselves. That's it. It's really simple. Cheers, everybody. End of the show. Bye-bye. Oh, no. I'm not going away yet. Give me a second. So I'm looking at this eclipse on a global scale. Now let's get back to the personal. Again, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know why there's no chat here. I can't see anything. So there's no point in even typing, because if you're typing, it's not coming through, and I don't know why. I'm sorry about that. There's only like 5 people watching apparently anyway, so, you know, what can you do? All right, so take this to the personal level. This is the sacred geometry of time at this moment right now. And it's going to be like this mostly for the eclipse and a few days after. Eventually this axis will shift and the energies will change, but for right now this is the sacred geometry. And it's to do with your money and how you trust that into the people that you trust, other people's money. How are you influenced by other people? How are you influencing other people with your money, their money? Your time, your energy, resources. Taurus, think of Taurus as resources. Time, money, energy, nature, anything to do with raw, measurable nature. How much gold do you have? How much money do you have in the bank? How many skills, talents, and resources do you have to make money? How much money have you saved? How authentic are your value systems? Okay? What does that look like for you? But anyway, this is a piece of sacred geometry. And it's different for everybody. Like, for example, if you are born with Aries like 1 degrees on the horizon, Sun, this is how the energy would affect you. If you are born with Cancer at 15 degrees, it would look very much like this. If you're born with Libra, 0 degrees, it would look like this. If you're born with Capricorn, like 10 degrees, it would look like this. So the question is, where does this eclipse affect you personally? So if any of you have any questions about that, I would invite you to get in touch and we can do a little personal private reading. It's the best way to do it. You can do that. You can go to Terra Lumination here. Let me show you. See if I can do this. Like, you can go to terralumination.com. This is the donate page. And you can just put money in and help keep the channel going. Thank you very much. If you want to get a reading, you want to get personal, you can click the readings page and that'll tell you how to do it. And then there's the connect page where it tells you how to write directly with Terra Lumination. We can do one-on-one consultations and we set it up and schedule it. You put money in the PayPal, it gets validated, and then we schedule a time and day for your reading. Okay, if that's what you want to do, if you're interested. Okay, so the eclipse is the eclipse. It is what it is. It's just another event in time, and eventually this will all fade and whatever happens next. The next round of eclipses are going to be in the kind of the Scorpio-Taurus axis anyway, because we're moving on out of the Gemini-Sagittarius axis into the Taurus-Scorpio thing. So we'll see where that goes, see how that goes. I feel like there's so much more that I could do or would do or should do, but I don't know how to do it. Sometimes it's much better just to work one-on-one. So if anyone's out there and they want to work one-on-one, we can do that. All right? I just need birth data and so on. Let me go back over here for a second. I'm just going to wrap it up. I can't really help much more tonight. I'm going to do a reading for Nikki because she bought one. She wanted to see a reading tonight for herself. So I'm just going to do that, all right? If there's anyone else who bought anything, I'm not aware, so I can't help. And I already owe 3 readings to these 3 folks here, all right? All right. Dear Nikki, if you can handle it, please stay there. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to get a glass of wine. I'm going to play you your little song that you seem to like so much. And I'm going to do that while I get a refreshment, and I'll be right back. Let me see if I can find the song itself. What the hell is it called? If I could even remember the song title. What the hell is it? Because I Care. That's what it is. Let's see if it comes up. My poor computer is struggling. It can't cope. Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. It's trying to come through. There's a mix. There's a mix on it. Because I Care MP4. Here, let's try this one. See if this works. No, it's really struggling. Try it again. Let's see if it works. Hold on. I got it.
Let's dissolve our pain and get out of danger. Heal all the wounds and cure all the anger. I'll be the doctor, you be the patient. Here is your medicine, I'll help you take it. No, it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. It wipes out the fear and makes you live longer. It's not a lotion, it's no magic potion. It's just a dose of love in the moment. I'll watch you while you're lying there, while your eyes are closed and your heart is bare. Perfectly still, but still aware. And I'm right here because I care, because I care. Holding your hand, I know you can feel me. I'll talk in a whisper, I know you can hear me. When you awaken, when we are conscious, totally healed and cured, just watch this. No more weeping, no more sadness. Gone is the fighting, gone is the madness. We can choose to become alive or just disappear or become survivors. I'll watch you while you're lying there, while your eyes are closed and your heart is bare. Perfectly still, but still aware. And I'm right here because I care, because I care. We're not gonna let you go down in flames. No, no, no. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna do this right.
All right. So, thank you anyone who's still here. There's a couple of people here apparently, and I just got a note from Love Triber that the chat is working for the viewers. So that's something if you want to chat amongst yourselves. Now, in a little, very shortly, we're going to be doing a little eclipse reading for Nikki. Okay? But before we get there, I just wanted to share a couple of other things that really stood out for me personally regarding this eclipse. I don't know if I can tie everything together with a perfect bow or anything, but some really profound, astonishing, amazing things happened in the build-up to the eclipse. Remember? I was talking about this. This is the time event. Here we are, November 17th. Okay, I should actually, talking about this video itself today, right now. Let's call this 17th November. This is where we are today, right now. Okay? In terms of time. Got it? 17th November. Time. But in terms of like sacred geometry, there's the build up to now and there's the afterglow from now. So some people are saying the eclipse is on the 19th. I look at it, I see it on the evening of the 18th. But either way, it is a build up to this moment in time. It's like a compression thing, okay? So we're going over here. Eclipse. The elevator. Eclipse coming out the other side. New life, new world. New perceptions. New levels of spiritual evolution. Goodbye to the old. Hello to the new. That's all I'm talking about, okay? This is like a measurable biological, physiological phenomenon for everybody, whether we like it or know it or not. If you are a highly conscious being, then you would understand this completely. If you're completely unconscious and you're operating from like your default birth settings, then this would sound like gibberish. Okay? But that's not here. Like on this channel, there's a few people who understand this. Okay? So anyway, what I was trying to say is how this plays out for each individual is completely unique. Either way, it's going to be something to do with value and values. The value that you are to someone else, the value that someone else is to you. What are you bringing to the equation that works for humanity and for the betterment of humanity? And what are you receiving in the equation that's ultimately for your benefit in the context of humanity? It's a perfectly, absolutely perfectly balanced equation. If you decide that I'm going to do whatever I can to extract everything I can from humanity for my benefit, then this whole thing will be distorted and all the ugliness will become apparent, which is what's happening on a global scale politically and financially. If you decide you want to adhere to truth, love, then you will enjoy the benefits that come from such an extreme piece of sacred geometry. But it is a choice. It's so much easier to give in to the story that we are being told as if it's truth. Remember, the Pisces energy here is still very, very strong in terms of illusions, beautiful illusions. And there are certain parts of the population and the controlling parts of humanity that are really sincerely trying to do what's best for humanity, but even some of them are completely deluded and saturated in their own delusion. They actually believe in the delusion. The reality is that we are finite beings, and whether we like it or know it or not, we are living and swimming in our own pee and our own poop, and what are we going to do about it? There are certain people who feel that they can profit from all of this by telling us, we the people, what to do and how to do it according to what works for them on their agenda so that they can profit from us. That's rape, exploitation, abuse. That is factory farming. It's not going to work for me. So some of us are realizing we have to try and live and conduct life like in parallel. There is the life in the world that is being imposed and implemented by the powers that be. They're doing it in a very compassionate, apparently loving way, but it's ultimately disgustingly self-serving, all about more money, power, and control for them, the power of the elites. But what's really important is that it's what works for humanity. So there's this story March of the Penguins. What about March of the Humans? I don't know how else to describe it. Anyway, let me get back to the stories. I made a couple of notes here. A couple of stories. Dear Nikki, some of you know Nikki. She's been with the channel since early days. Nikki is a professional, I guess you'd say, in this world of money and other people's money, but she also happens to be highly evolved spiritual being at this level of stuff, where she happens to have these gifts that some people call remote viewing or energy healing or being a psychic medium or whatever. And I just wanted to share a story. I hope you're not offended, Nikki or Love Triber, if you're watching and all of that. But some of you know that I'm over here in Las Vegas. Actually, let me go. I'll tell the story here. I'm over here in Las Vegas now. And there's a lot of amazing synchronistic things happening. Please don't be offended, but I'm gonna tell a story, okay? It's very personal, it's very private, but it's also a very beautiful story to illustrate the healing power of love and how human perception is able to operate at those frequencies that are so beyond traditional measures, like time and day and a slide rule or a video or a phone call, whatever. So some of you know that Love Triber has been going through some very intense conditions right now involving major life-changing surgery. Okay? And Love Triber, like a bunch of the rest of us here on this channel, we're sort of intercommunicating. We're like our own little micro community. And it just so happens that dear Nikki is part of that community. And I was told a story which to me is mind-blowing. In a nutshell, it's this. Nikki and Love Triber were chatting away, and Nikki conveyed a message that I see a bubble. I see fluids. I see extraction of fluids. I see this as directly correlated with your surgery on the spine. Major spinal surgery. However, this is not life-threatening. This is a bubble, and it will be extracted. The fluids will be extracted, and everything will be fine. In fact, more than fine. You're going to have a full recovery. Okay. So that was whatever it was, 10 days ago, a week or two ago. Now let's in terms of storytelling, get back to the days of the surgery. 11/11. November 11th, 11/11/2021, Love Triber goes in for surgery. A life-changing experience. There's life before, there's life after. Think of my elevator story, okay? So this is an illustration. What's happening with Love Triber is an illustration of what's happening for everybody, each in our own way. For Love Triber, it's happening in her way. And for Nikki, it's happening in her way. But there are some overlaps which conveniently lead to this incredibly beautiful story about the healing power of love and how it is so far way above and beyond our biological physical senses. And instead we're talking about ESP, extrasensory perception, everything to do with the pituitary gland and spiritual connections between heaven and earth, our invisible friends, our guides, our protectors. Okay, so there we are. Love Triber's in the hospital. Major spinal surgery. I'm not kidding. Okay, I'm there. Her friends are there. We're all there. We're living through the experience. And Love Triber's eyes are popping open because in no way in her imagination did she ever know that she was going to be thrust or sucked into the elevator, thrust upwards, and then come out the other side. There's no better story that I can think of right now besides what happened to Love Triber. And it's still happening live right now in real time. So, okay, so we're in there. An incredibly beautiful hospital. The best I've ever seen. The best surgeons. The very, very, very best top of the line neurosurgeons here in Las Vegas. They are taking care of Love Triber. Got it. They're all coming around. There's Cameron, the anesthesiologist. He's like, I look at Cameron. Cameron looks at me and I say, hey, Cameron, you're the guy who makes everybody feel good, right? Even though we're going through a pile of SHIT, okay? So anyway, there's so many layers to the story. I just want to get to the punchline. It's almost, to me, it's almost surreal how the story is evolving and how these different characters, the surgeons, the doctors, the friends of Love Triber and so on, are all coalescing into this moment of sacred astrology, sacred geometry. We measure it in terms of time. It's so precise, it's mind-boggling. It's just like I'm trying to describe on that chart I showed you earlier with the elevator. And prior to the surgery, Love Triber is chatting away with her friend. And the friend says, you know what? I see a bubble. I see some kind of bubble with fluid, and it's very close to the spine, very close to the surgery. I see syringes. I see draining. Draining has to happen. I see that this is not life-threatening. This is actually beneficial, and you will come out the other side okay. Okay, so that was that. That was a moment in time before the surgery. Then, there's everybody in the hospital, a whole bunch of people, and the surgery is happening. Everything's super intense, like it is with surgery. And then we come out the other side, and then, oh my God, there's an oh my God moment where Love Triber comes out of surgery, and the physician's assistant rushes into the the public area and gathers all of us who are there for Love Triber. And he said, and the doctor says, listen, come on, I got to talk to you people. Got to talk to you people. Love Triber is in there right now. She had a really successful surgery. It's going really well. They figured everything out. She's going to be fine. But there's this huge bubble of blood that's coalescing near the surgery. We've done everything we can. We've drained it and everything. I took a 1.6 mil syringe, sucked out all the blood. And that wasn't enough. So, they had to call in another surgeon, the backup surgeon. The backup surgeon to the #1 neurosurgeon here in Las Vegas. So that backup surgeon comes in, takes care of business. They have to go back in. Love Triber is wheeled back into major surgery. They put her under general anesthetic. And they go in there and they figure out what it is. Apparently it's something called a hematoma. It's like a bruise where inside some kind of blood vessel pops and blood oozes out, and you would see it like a bruise, like this blue-black thing, okay? Severe blue-black thing. So that's what it was, apparently. So the secondary backup doctor went in there, figured it out, blocked up all the broken veins and vessels or whatever, and fixed it. And then they sewed everything back up again. So in other words, Love Triber had major surgery followed by major surgery. And in the end, it all worked out. And then everything heals, and there's all the, the chaos, and what are we going to do? What happens next? And eventually, Love Triber arrives back at her house, and I am there. I'm trying to help her and everything. And she looks at me. She says, "Do you realize what happened there? You know what happened with that hematoma? That's exactly what Nikki was talking about from the remote viewing. The remote viewing of the healing." And it's absolutely true. So what does that tell you? It tells me that there's a whole world of perception and healing power of love above and beyond our 5 senses where time doesn't exist. Let me show you. Let me go back to this little chart. Okay? Sorry, I need a little beverage. I'm doing this purely for the joy of realizing and understanding that there is so much more to life beyond our 5 senses. Again, understand time, tick-tock, tick-tock, down to the very, very, very second. Let's just say this is roughly November 11th right here. You go into the surgery, live through the surgery, come out the surgery on the other side. So this is the Love Triber moment, the build up to the eclipse and the aftermath of the eclipse. So in the build up to the eclipse, we're talking about the days leading into the surgery. So over here, several days before the surgery, Nikki has an awakening, a crystalline, pure vision, knowing that there is a bubble in Love Triber after the surgery. And it's not dangerous, it's not life-threatening, and it needs to be drained, and it will be drained. And guess what? That is exactly what happened. We're going to do a little mini reading for Nikki in a moment. But I got to tell you, how many channels do you know of that talk about this kind of stuff? I mean, I feel like a freak. Statistically, we are on the fringes of the fringe of the fringe. There's only like a handful, maybe a few dozen people, maybe 50 or 100 people who ever pay attention to this channel or understand any of what's going on. And that's just the kind of sad, tragic reality. On the other hand, the beauty is that in terms of time frame, Nikki sensed the hematoma over here in terms of remote healing, remote viewing, remote energy healing. She sensed it over here in terms of time. Remember, time is ticking this way. So she sensed it. Love Triber lives through the surgery, comes out the other side. Boom! Oh my God, there's a problem. Hematoma, got to do it. We're living through the eclipse right now, and by the end of the week, we're going to be coming out the other side. And coming out the other side includes the story about what happened with Nikki and Love Triber, visualizing, understanding the hematoma in order to survive and come out the other side. Because frankly, in the hospital, I was there, and all Laura's friends were there too. We were told and informed by one of the doctors that this is very serious. And he took all of us to the side, and he said, we've had a very successful surgery regarding her spine, but we have a serious, complication. It turns out the serious complication was the hematoma, and it was fixed and cured because they took immediate radical action, and they brought in a second surgeon on an emergency call to fix it, and they fixed it. Okay? It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a beautiful story, and that's what happens when you're tuned in to the healing power of love, and you can actually enjoy this experience going from here to here to here. Yes, it might be physiological pain and so on, but going from here to here sometimes involves a lot of discomfort, because a lot of people would rather go, you know what, I'd rather just kill myself. I can't handle the pain of going from here to here. I'm just going to tap out. Guess what, people? That happens. There are plenty of people on planet Earth. There's a lot of them here in America who are dealing with parallel situations in their body, their minds, their hearts, their souls, and they can't handle the pain. They can't handle it. And so they tap out. They tap out because they can't figure out or handle how to go from here to here. And a lot of the problem is because they don't have the support or the love of other people that gives them the opportunity of shared values, shared resources of what's good for everybody as opposed to what's good for the self. They don't have that. I'm very lucky I have that. Love Triber is very lucky. She has that. She has the environmental community, Aquarian, shared resource vibe that allows Love Triber to go from here to here by sharing and integrating her energy with the tribe. Okay? Now, I'm sharing this story because I told Love Triber in advance that I'm going to share this story because it's so relevant and it's such a good example of what's happening with the eclipses. I got one more little story I want to share, and that's to do with Lena from Argentina. It's a completely different storyline. Lena from Argentina, some of you know, she's a highly advanced spiritual being. She's very musical, very literate, and she's based in Argentina, and she's on her own journey. Her own journey is impacted just like the rest of us. Where exactly? That's her business. It's private. But this axis, for better or worse, is being highly activated right now. Anyway, just a few days ago, Lena from Argentina sent a note to me, and it contained a link to a song. And the song is my own song, and the song is called Taste Your Dreams. I'm going to play that song right now, but what I'm going to do in the near future, I'm going to try to find a way to share that with everybody on the channel as best I can, because she did a cover version of the song, and frankly, it's way better than my own. Seriously, she does it in such a way that it rolls, and it's so sweet and it's so pure. The only way I can describe it is this. Hold on. Some of you might know this. Have you ever heard that song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow? I think it's by that fellow, I think he's called Izzy, but he's like a massive, like 800-pound overweight singer from Hawaii. He's huge, and he plays a tiny little ukulele. And he plays Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Okay, he's like, it's a huge, huge successful pop song. But anyway, Lena from Argentina sounds, it's like the same thing. It's just a different song, a different singer, but it has the same vibe. And frankly, I feel that she did a much better rendition than I ever could do on my own. And, you know, I'm not a technical whiz. Apparently it's on Spotify and all that stuff, so I'm gonna try and share it with you through my Constant Contact, and I hope you get to hear it. But to me, that's another example of the amazing beauty of synchronicity when you deliberately surrender to the healing power of love and you immerse yourself in the flow and you say, you know what, frickin' bring it on. Bring it on, man, just bring it on. Instead of trying to exploit that energy for vanity and for self-aggrandizement, it's more about like, wow, how can I share that energy for humanity? So Lena from Argentina, my feeling is that she did her own version of that. I always wished that I could have some of my songs have a worldwide impact, because some of them are really truly worthy of a worldwide impact of a very beautiful, inspiring, uplifting kind of soul-felt song. It's never happened for me in my lifetime. I don't know if it ever will. I doubt it personally. But Lena is an example of what happens with other people's resources. Okay? Scorpio, Taurus, Axis, full moon eclipse, blah, blah, blah. Aquarius, what's good for humanity? What I feel is that Lena volunteered, humanity, Aquarius, her energy to do a cover, authentic, beautiful rendition of the song from Tarot Lumination called Taste Your Dreams. That's something that I created that has value, but I don't feel like the value has ever been exposed or accessed until this moment in time. I've never heard anyone else sing that song, but when I heard Lena from Argentina singing that song, I was in tears. I was just blown away. I kept thinking, holy shit, I wish I'd written that song. And then I realized, oh wow, I actually wrote that song. But the beauty is that Lena was singing it. And it's so pure, it's so beautiful. I don't know how to share the experience. I'm going to try. Thank you, Lena. Hold on. Anyway, I'm done. I can't do any more. I have to do a reading for Nikki. Okay, here we go. Excuse me. All right, I'm just going to do a little mini reading for Nikki. I'm going to use the Universal Golden. Again, this is random. This is totally random. Okay, Nikki? Bless this deck. Bless every single card. Bless the technology. Bless all my softwares. A multiple, at least 5 layers of softwares operating simultaneously. Bless the channel, the internet, the electricity, the lights, the cameras, the platform that allows any or all of this to happen at all. It's freaking mind-boggling. It's super Aquarian. Okay? But we're taking it to the next level. We haven't even done a video about that yet, but believe me, I'm serious. Over the next few years, we're going to see mind-boggling changes in human experience as we shift from the time frame of Pluto in Capricorn, flip to Pluto in Aquarius. we're heading into a whole new planetary experience for humanity. Okay? But right now, we're going to do a mini reading for Nikki. Okay, what kind of messages do we have here for Nikki tonight? Just totally random, out of the blue. Let's see what happens. Oh, man. I wish I could do more to help people. Sometimes I feel incredibly frustrated with my little channel that I only have like 3 or 5 viewers. And some of the people that I enjoy, they have, 200,000, 500,000. And then when they do a live video, they have 1,500 people watching. I don't have any of that stuff. And I'm really kind of pissed off and bitter because I feel like I have something to offer. It's just like there's nobody out there who's ready, willing, and able to receive, except for the handful of us who are here right now. To me, that's really tragic. It causes me a lot of pain, but I try to stay positive and keep going forward anyway. All right, here we go. All right, Nikki, let's see what's going on. It's just totally random, okay? Totally random. All right, I'm going to cut it up. Whoa, that was freakish, man. All right, so this is going to be a kind of highly unpredictable reading. Here's the situation. Here's the challenges. Here's how we're going to handle it. I feel like I'm being very challenged to be extremely pure. Here is the, let's say, influence. Okay, the King of Wands. Okay, this is a super ultra like hyper masculine energy. And in a way it feels like, okay, sure, you could think of it as an external influence, but it feels to me also like there is this like external benevolence, which is, it's almost like, to me this almost feels like spirit guides. You know, Nikki, how you have your invisible friends and they are very vivid, active characters in your life. And I think it's John and Chris. We've talked about them before. They have been very active in your readings in the past. So that's male energy. So it feels to me like with the King of Wands here, it's an indication that that male energy is out there and for you, and it's like being, how can I gotta think how to say this. It's like, to me it feels it's almost like your invisible friends are telling you, dear Nikki, you are female, and by default you have a very compassionate, super, hyper, ultra feminine, receptive energy field, which allows you to do things like you do, like remote energy viewing, remote energy healing, psychic medium healing, and so on and so on. And that's great. Thank you very much, Nikki. Great, great, great. But there's another side of you which you need to be aware of, which is the masculine side. And it's more to do with being reminded that it's like it is forbidden for you to live a life of complete and utter self-sacrifice for others in order to benefit others. In other words, you're not allowed to be a martyr. You're not allowed to be a saint just because you could if you wanted to. It's almost like that's a cop-out. And instead, it's time for you to give yourself permission to be like, I mean, this is going to sound really weird, okay, Nikki? It's like It's almost like you need to get in touch with your inner narcissist, your inner egomaniac, your inner whatever. I mean, that sounds like a hard. No, sorry, forget it. Delete. It's more like, Nikki, you need to understand that you have a right and a duty and obligation to honor yourself and respect yourself as a valid and valuable individual in such a way that you are not operating like an antenna, like an instrument or the healing power of love, where you're just literally receiving and transmitting energy in a very neutral way for other people, because you can take it to the point where your energy can be exploited by other people who sense and detect your energy of extreme purity, extreme loving abilities to tap into those like Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces energy vibes at the highest frequencies of loving and being loved, which allows you to be like the remote viewer, the remote healer, the psychic medium that you do, like, just for fun. In other words, it's almost like there's a message here where it's time for you to say, like, enough is enough. I am Nikki. I understand like who I am, where I am, and I have these default settings of being able to do this remote healing, all that, blah 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 blah, all of that stuff. Thank you very much. And yes, that's a very spiritually highly advanced modality. Okay. On the other hand, you're still part of this. You're still part of the community. You're still part of the world. And you cannot afford, and it's very unhealthy and inappropriate for you to completely take your energy and hoard it for yourself, or completely take your energy and dissolve it and give it away completely and utterly to other people. There has to be a balancing point for you where you are not only a donor and a benefactor, you are also a recipient of the healing power of love at the scale to which you deserve, okay? Which is supreme. So it means like, it's almost like it's time to go into ego training. Like, it's really, really important now where you have to kind of like draw a line. You say, you know what? Honestly, Nikki, this sounds complete. It's like so contradictory to the stories that I was talking about earlier on this video about these megalomaniac, egomaniacs, sociopaths at the very top level of society, where all they care about is money, power, and control. You're at the complete other end of the spectrum, okay, where you have devoted all your energy, which is significant, for being of service to others, including, what happened with the story with you and Love Driver. And we have to strike a balance, okay? It's time for you to, like, you know what, say, I have a right to actually enjoy my life as it is right now. I don't have to be a saint 24/7. I don't have to be a martyr 24/7. What's the situation itself? Okay, so we've got the Hierophant here. It's a very big, powerful card. It's about being, to me it feels like it's about being wedded and, let's say, committed to very, very, very pure, very strict belief systems. To me this feels like a statement. It's like your situation right now is that you are deeply committed to a belief system and a way of being that is, let's say, I would say very demanding and resistant and resistant to alternatives or compromise. Okay? You could call this religious orthodoxy, or you could call this commitment to faith, commitment to the purest, highest code of being. So that's your situation. To me, it feels like this is a statement. To me, this feels like it's almost like you, Nikki, personally, are making a statement like, thank you very much, Tarot Illumination, for everything that you said over here. But my reality, my situation is that I'm deeply committed to a very specific and pure and just and loving and honorable and truthful way of being. I am married to this. This is married to me. And this is how it is, for better or worse. Before I go to this next card, can you sense that I'm already sensing in advance the energy of rigidity, and how, no matter how wonderful this is, it's the opposite of flexibility and the opposite of fluidity and being able to move and live in the moment in a way that's best for you, which is a way that's best for humanity. So this is a very odd combination of energy where it's like we're starting to sense that what you believe might be best for you, according to your paradigms, in how that would work, what's best for humanity, isn't necessarily always the case, because you might have been operating from such an Aquarian, selfless energy field that it's actually counterproductive, counterintuitive. Okay, so it's great to have so much faith and energy, commitment to what is pure and true and just and honest, but to the point where it's actually hurting you. Does that make sense? What's the problem here? Let's have a look. Okay, to me it feels like one of the challenges is that you have a very highly refined, highly purified, let's say, what's the word? Definition of what love means to you in your life, in your world. And so there's love from the raw animal state, like boy, girl, you're hot, I'm hot, I love you, you love me, I feel really good when I'm with you, you feel really good with you when you're with me, and it becomes this cozy blob, and it becomes an 8th house Scorpio merging of energy resources, which turns into pregnancy and babies and so on. That's the 8th house energy. That's what I'm sensing here, which would be very idealized. On the other hand, when you take it to extremes, where you get to the point where you're expecting that from the whole of humanity, and it becomes a real problem. Like, wow, not everybody on planet Earth is so committed to being loving and being loved. That's a problem. That becomes a really serious problem. When you are so deeply committed to the purity of how things should be, could be, would be, if only they were pure, then that would be great. But the reality is we live on planet Earth where there's a lot of mediocrity and compromise. And that could feel very, very painful for you, where you end up in a situation where that appears like it's highly manifested with love, and then you realize in a very shocking, tragic kind of way that, oh my God, it's actually like love in the human form as opposed to love in the soul form. And there's this tragic incompatibility. So that leaves you confounded. Like, it's almost like, why is it that I'm not allowed to have love where I can maintain my stature, my integrity, my standards? Why is it so impossible? Why is that so out of reach? Why doesn't anyone else get it? All you have to do is operate at my frequency, and then you can enjoy the healing power of love at the level where I operate, and I can enjoy the healing power of love where you operate. And yet, it seems just out of reach. How are we going to deal with this? Now, I don't know, I can't remember any details of your astrology, Nikki, but it wouldn't surprise me if you're from the Pluto and Virgo generation, where there's this constant, never-ending yearning for perfection, and then realizing like, oh my God, it's not perfect. There's always something that's not working. And that very thing that is not working sends the Virgo energy berserk. Like, I can't tell good. I need to have everything perfect. Everything needs to be operational. Anyway, let's keep going. How are we going to deal with this going forward? Okay, so, with the Strength card here, it feels to me, it's like, this is a really awkward reading, okay, Nikki? It feels to me like the way to go forward is understanding, like I hope that what I was trying to describe here, I'm hoping that makes sense to you in some way, and that going forward, once you understand what I was trying to describe here, the way to go forward is you only have one choice. You have to go forward on the understanding is that it's almost like you are wrestling with yourself. It's nothing to do with other people in your life, in your world, lovers, friends, family, relationships, co-workers. It's all about you and how you interpret and live your own life relative to yourself. And so let's just say this is over here, this is you living in your three-dimensional reality, get up in the morning, do this, do that, communicate with them, do this, do that, bring in the money, spend the money, do this, do that, to the best of your abilities and powers. And yet, there's this whole other plane of existence, which is your spiritual world, on a whole other higher level and frequency. And the two things are happening simultaneously, okay? So how are you going to deal with that? The way to deal with it is to understand that you have no option except to stay on the path of spirit. And learn, okay, what's that expression? Learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. In other words, especially for Virgoan types, not that you're a Virgo, Nikki, but with that generation of Pluto and Virgo, it's incredibly hard for them to absorb and understand and accept that things are not perfect. So what do? You have to kind of like brainwash yourself and you say, I have to learn and understand that in my physical daily waking life of passions and energy exchange of life and activities, resources, it's all done with the best of intentions towards perfection, but the reality, it's not perfect. It's like, it's an attempt at perfection. And so then you end up having to live this life where it's like very sublime, where you have to accept the frustrations of imperfection. And that there's beauty in that. It's almost like being an artist that's always seeking perfection in their work and never quite getting there. Okay? I'm switching very quickly here. So imagine that you're an artist, okay, Nikki? And you're living your life to the highest degrees of perfection that you can. And inside, personally, it feels like it's not quite good enough. Like this relationship with so-and-so, that relationship with so-and-so, my expression, myself, what I deserved to receive, what I am sharing. There's some kind of disparity. There's some kind of imperfection. Oh no, oh no, oh no. And that is being expressed and lived in your life. So just imagine yourself as a world famous like painter from the, Vincent van Gogh or something, where they lived, part of your life would be feeling very tortured, like because of the imperfection. All right, now here's the good part. Maybe after you're gone, I don't want to sound all doom and gloom and like, death is the opening to love and beauty. But just think of it like what happens to tortured artists, okay? They never got to experience fulfillment in their lifetime. But think of Vincent van Gogh. He's a very famous artist who's extremely highly valued in this lifetime today, all around planet Earth. But in his own life, he was tortured and suffering. He was acutely aware, sensually aware, and he captivated all of that in his art. Some people thought he was insane. They would say, you need to stop, Vincent. You're on a pathway to nowhere. You're out of your freaking mind. Get a job. Get a freaking job, man. And yet, he continued on his path. And he created these beautiful works of art. And when in his artwork, there's astronomical amounts of imperfection when it comes to technicalities, okay? Okay, he didn't make the perfect line, the perfect color, but when you step back and look at it, it's supremely beautiful.